Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the penultimate webinar in our 6-part Airsys.Cloud webinar series. The topic of today's session will be the Airsys.Cloud Dispatcher, or A.Rodon as it's referred to. The presenters today will be myself, Mike Wiltshire, and our Director of Software Solutions, Richard Webb, will be on hand to answer any and all questions submitted throughout this session. So the usual bit of housekeeping to get going with. Again, today's webinar will be no more than 45 minutes. We try and keep them fairly short and sweet for you guys, and that will include the question and answer session. All participants, of course, will be muted throughout this session, and any and all questions can be submitted via the live event Q&A section, which should be available on the right hand side of your page. You should have received copies of the slides already in this presentation, and the recording of it will be sent to you after the event, which will essentially be a link to our YouTube channel, Airsys.Cloud Broadband Push to Talk, where you can also view the previous 4 webinars as well, just in case you missed anything. So as we said, this is the 5th in our 6-part series. We've already covered the Broadband Push to Talk Complete Solution, the big 3, what makes Airsys.Cloud tick, Airsys.Cloud Commander, the Airsys.Cloud application itself. Today's topic is the dispatcher, and next week our last session will be the all-important bolt-ons. We are planning a second series of these webinars that will likely come towards the end of the year, and we'll certainly let you know about it before the time comes. So during this webinar, the dispatcher, we will be taking you through the solution itself, much like we did with the application last week. So we'll be covering off the login, the settings, the various things you need to be aware of whilst logging into it. An overview of the layout, the ease of use. Again, we'll look at channels, favorites, and messaging. We'll look at the emergency aspect of it, and we'll also take a look at the maps with Geo Fences and guard tools, where we can get a bit clever with the solution and do various funky things. So let's get into it. The Airsys.Cloud Dispatcher, or A.Rodon as it's known, is an Airsys.Cloud desktop dispatch application for Windows devices. So it's not available online. It can be downloaded from the Airsys.Cloud website, but it is a Windows program. It's available in 2 versions currently. That's the Smart version, which comes with all the bells and whistles of the Airsys.Cloud bolt-on, such as Lone Worker Protection, Task Manager, indoor localization, video calling, all those nice features for a fully fledged system. Or there's the Push to Talk application for basic use only, which will give you push to talk features and messaging along with GPS tracking as well, of course. Much like the application in that way. So if you've got the push to talk apps on all your devices, then there's no reason that you shouldn't have just a push to talk Rodon dispatcher as well. Again, like the field users and the application, or a Flex user should I say, all the functions of A.Rodon clients can be individually managed via the Airsys.Cloud Commander that we had a look in webinar 3. It's just a different type of user. So again, the dispatch credentials can be defined in Airsys Commander and are available in text form for use with the dispatch client devices. So much like last week and the application webinar, for the purpose of this one, we've assumed a fully featured Airsys.Cloud server configured with recording of data and media, all bolt-on, call queuing, end-to-end encryption, and status messages. You might see a bridging channel on the dispatch user, but we're actually going to cover off bridging in a future series of our webinars. So let's go ahead and look at the solution itself. So this is the main homepage of the Airsys.Cloud dispatch solution. It's fairly straightforward. It's simple username and password boxes, and 3 options below, which are connect, settings, and check servers. Much like the Airsys Flex application on the devices itself, when you're logging in for the first time, it's best to go to settings first. There you can input your username and password. You can make sure the server name is correct, in this case 002.airsys.cloud, and the server port is correct also, in this case 65101. This is individual to the end users and what keeps their network secure and private. Once you're happy that all the credentials are correct, simply click on Save, and that will ensure that these boxes are always pre-populated each time you log into the application. So after you've got the credentials in, next thing to do is to check the servers, make sure everything's running the way it should do. All of these should be on, apart from the bottom one, which is port 80 TCP. That will always say unknown. If any of the others say anything other than on, it's best to give us at Airsys.Cloud a call, and we can give you some advice as to what the solution might be. Once you're happy that they're all on, click OK, and then we've got the option to click Connect. So here are a couple of beeps, and that basically means that we are open and on the network. So let's just take a quick look at the home page, and we'll walk through all the various plugins. So on the left hand side we've got our list of channels and users. So you can see in channel 1 we've currently got one user, that's me obviously as Airsys2 dispatcher, and in channel 2 we've got one user, which is my iPhone, and in the main channel we've got our Web5 dispatch user as well. Okay, this is just a field user that I've set up for the purpose of this webinar session. At the bottom I've got our push to talk button, and I simply click and hold on that, and I can talk to everybody that's in the channel that I'm currently in as a dispatcher, which is channel 1, and as we know at the moment there's no users. Okay, so the top left hand side, the top of the page, we've got our list of plugins. These are messaging, task manager, broadcast call, lone worker protection, emergency journal, local history, events journal, history, favorites, indoor localization, emergency map, local map, and call queuing. Now remember, for the purpose of this webinar, we've enabled all the plugins to make sure that we've got a full service available to us. On the top right hand side of the screen we've got our map, we've got our pop out option, we've got our settings, information, which is about, and your log out button as well on the right hand side at the top here. Beneath that we've got a list of channels. We can select users, recent operatives, or all. So there's various things we can do with that, and we'll refer back to that as we move through the bolt-ons at the top of the page there. So as we said before, these are all a list of the plugins that we've currently got, but if you want to remove any plugins, you simply go to your settings tab, scroll down to plugin management, and here's where you can enable or disable the various plugins that we've got. As you can see, everything's enabled and nothing's disabled at the moment, and that's the way we'll keep it for the purpose of this webinar. But it just gives you an option to tailor it to the user requirements, or the dispatcher requirements, should I say. So I'll just touch on each of these plugins briefly. Obviously, if I went through them in detail, we'd be here for probably about 3 hours. So I'll just touch on them just so you can see the ease of operation. So we're in messaging at the moment. If you want to send a message out to channel, simply you've got the channels down here. You select the channel you'd like to send a message to. You go to your message box, type in your message, and hit reply, and away it goes. And you might have heard a little beep there, which was going through onto my iPhone. As we know, we've sent it to channel 2, and the user that's in there is myself. Another great feature with Airsys.Cloud is that you can have status messages. So you see the bottom right hand corner here, you've got this little envelope with a 1 in. If we click on that, it gives you some status messages that can all be pre-programmed. And this is done at an administrator level on Airsys.Cloud Commander. So for example, for this one, you can simply hit click dispatch, double click, and it sends automatically. So it's just a fast way of sending messages that are pre-populated or predefined, should I say. And you'll see at the bottom right hand side, you've got this little paperclip that gives us the ability to do attachments. Very straightforward. Again, as you would attach to any other email or whatever, it brings up your Finder, select the file that you need to send, and send it as you would do normally. Let's take a look at Task Manager. So currently there are no tasks in here. Again, very straightforward to raise a task. You simply go to Create Issue, and that brings up this box where you just populate the various areas that it's requesting. So for this one, we'll do job 1. It's a new task, so we'll leave that at new. The priority is high. It's 0% done, obviously, because we've just started. And if you want to assign somebody, you can either assign a team or a user. So in this case, we'll go to our dispatch user. And if you remember in webinar 3, we created these drop-down fields within Task Manager. So we've got these pre-populated ones that we can make that we can do very quickly to raise a task. And then you can put in the description, collect Mrs. Smith, for example. So click Save Issue. That's been raised, and you probably heard a second ping there, which was the task going through to the user device. So this ultimately will be a list of various tasks that you've got going on, and as the user completes various aspects of the task, they can update the percentage, they can update the status, and ultimately it just allows you to stay across what tasks are going on within the business at the moment. I'd love to show you what it looks like on the field device as well, but if you want to see that, I'd be more than happy to put on a demonstration for you after the webinar. We can do a Teams call and screen sharing, and I'll take you through what the device looks like for task management. It's a great little bolt-on to Airsys.Cloud. So let's have a quick look at dynamic group calls. So this is where you can set up dynamic groups essentially. So you can merge channels. So if you wanted to talk to channel 1 and channel 2, you can simply highlight the both of them and click on merge channel down here, and that will create a dynamic channel with all the users within that group. So it just gives you another way of contacting multiple users in multiple channels in one easy action. Lone worker protection. This is where you can see who is lone workers on the system and the various parameters that are assigned to them. And what you can do as a dispatcher with lone worker is you can click on the particular person that you'd like to look at, i.e. Mike's iPhone in this case, and down the right hand side you get a list of the parameters that were set in the commander. But as a dispatcher you also get to amend those levels as well, so you get a bit more control over what triggers the lone workers alerts. That's a nice feature for dispatchers. Moving on to the emergency journal. So this will tell you when emergencies took place and where, in fact. So you'll get this little icon on the right hand side, and you simply click on that and it will bring up a map and it will tell you exactly where that emergency took place. So you can see the red marker here took place in Guildford. Okay. So it will tell you the various the triggers for the alerts as well. So we've got impact down here, we've got a guard tour check-in failed here. So it tells you all the various different emergency triggers that were that happened. So local history is basically a history of all the communications that the dispatcher has been involved in. So it's local to this device. Events journal tells us everything that's happened on the system. So you can see the dispatcher is online, whether the dispatcher is online or offline, what emergencies have taken place. You can see if a device has been changed to anything. There's basically a journal of everything that's happened on the system, like I say. And then you've got your history. This is if you've got your record server enabled. You see this history icon, and that allows you to play back everything that's happened on the network, on the communications network. The favorites tab is a really good one. So at the moment, if we look at our channels and the way they're set up and what users are available in them, we know that we've got the Web5 dispatcher in channel main, we've got the Airsys.2 dispatcher in channel 1, and Mike's iPhone in channel 2. What we can do here is we can set up dynamic channels, and what this means is basically we can select users to be pulled into a channel if I push this button. So if I wanted to speak to all the users on the system, I'd simply have a list of all their IDs along here, hit save, and then when I push to talk, it pulls them into this dynamic channel. So you can see we've now got 3 users in this dynamic channel, and I can simply hold this button down and talk to everyone at once. Once the dispatcher's finished doing that, they simply click release, and it puts all the users back into the channels they were playing in beforehand. Okay, so that's a really nice feature. Also, you can create a chat. You can create them so they're channel specific. So rather than creating a dynamic channel, you can have it as a static call, and that basically means that anybody on channel 1 you can speak to just by clicking this button. You can group them into any order that you'd like around here, so you can have a number of large buttons that you can be pushed easily. It just allows the dispatcher to navigate around the system a bit easier and talk to the right people at the right time in any situation. So let's move on to indoor localization. This is one of my favorite features in Airsys.Cloud. It's very futuristic, but I think it's really beneficial for a lot of instances. So let's have a look at this. Currently it's a floor plan for the top level of my house, and you can see there is a user floating around in my bedroom at the moment. This is running off my local Wi-Fi, so it'll jump around a bit. But what you can do is have Bluetooth beacons scattered throughout the building that you're covering, and that will give you incredibly good accuracy. Obviously depending on the amount of beacons that you're in play and the frequency of where they're placed around the building. So there is 3D mapping coming. You can see on the side here we've got ground floor, first floor, we've got the various locations that are available, and that can be multiple, obviously, as you would expect. But we're having 3D mapping coming soon, and that's going to show you floors of buildings. You'll be able to see people going up and down lifts, up and down stairs, etc., etc. So it'll be very Minority Report, but certainly an exciting feature for a lot of companies. So let's move on to the emergency map. Now this will tell us wherever an emergency is taking place. So if I was to key up an emergency on one of these devices, it's going to make a loud noise. And you can see where it's taking place on this map. What it does when you have an emergency is it opens up the channel, so you can just talk as normal and the person will hear you. They don't need to push to talk in case they can't reach the device. It just keeps the channel open so you can talk in full duplex. Then we've got our local mapping. This can be anything, so it could be pipe works, it could be some sort of a floor plan over a building. It just makes it a bit more configurable to the user's needs, so they can put local points of interest around a map and see people moving around as they want. We've got call queuing. This is where field users can request a callback of the dispatcher. So if they haven't been able to get in touch for whatever reason, they can request a callback in this section. This icon will turn a different color when there's a call waiting, and the dispatcher will simply go on, click on the user, and push to talk. So that's a very quick overview of the various plugins that we've got, the options. Again, like I say, if you want a more in-depth demonstration, we'd be more than happy to do so for you. Simply get in touch with us on the inquiries email address that you received your link for the webinar this morning, and we'll be able to get in touch with you and arrange a full demonstration with a bit more time to go through it in more detail. So the other thing to show you quickly is just on the users themselves. What you've got as a dispatcher is you've got the ability to right click on various users. So when you right click on a user, you get these sub options, if you like. So you can make a call to them, you can center them on a map, you can listen ambiently to them. This is where you can listen to the device with them knowing or without them knowing, depending on how you set it up in Commander. You can send them a message, we can do push to video, you can take a picture, or you can do a video call or video streaming to this user. So there's a bunch of options that you can do with a simple right click on the user you'd like to do them with, basically. Again, a nice easy feature and just shows you how simple the system is to use. So let's take a look at the maps over on the right hand side here. This is where we can set up our guard tools and Geo Fences. So when you click on a map tool, it'll open it up in a different window. So if you're a dispatcher with multiple screens, you can simply put this map on one and have your main screen on another. That's true of all the plugins. So if you had multiple screens, you could select Task Manager, for example, put it on a pop out and move it onto a third screen. So you can have a map, your main dispatcher, and a third screen with the Task Manager on. There's lots of things that you can do to make it as easy to operate as possible. So let's zoom in on the dispatcher. And just quickly to show you some of the features that are available in Map Tools, what you can do is you can look at all the users. So you can either select Show All Users, or you can select None, in which case you won't see any users on the map. So what I'll do for this quickly is I'll create a geofence so you can see how easy that is to do. And one of the great features of Airsys.Cloud is that you can do any shape geofencing. So quite often you'll have the option to do a circle. You might get a square if you're lucky, but with Airsys.Cloud you can do any shape essentially. So to do any shape, you simply click on this icon here, and you can click on the various points around a given area. and there is your Geo Fence. In order to set the properties for the Geo Fence, you right click inside it and go to properties, and this is where you set up the management control of that zone. So you can give it a name, whatever it might be. You can give it a color, so if you've got multiple zones you can differentiate easily. These are all different shadings that you can put into the colors, just if you've got a zone inside a zone inside a zone, for example. It just gives you a bit more ease of looking at that amount of zones in play, so to speak. So if you want calls enabled within that zone, you simply click calls enabled, and if you want to make it a static call on a single channel, you can do that. If you want to make it a dynamic call, you can do that as well. So for the purposes of this, we'll leave it as static call, and you can select the channel that it's applicable to as well. So when we go to zone management, the zone manager is normally the dispatcher, so they accept management of that zone. Then you've got the option to move channels when the users go into the zone. So if you're entering the zone and you want the user to be moved onto channel 1, for example, and then outside the zone you want them to be on channel main, simply select those two options. And what you can do is disable the channel change within the zone as well. So if I click on disable channel change, when I'm in the zone, I'm forced onto channel 1, and I won't be able to look at any other channels. I won't be able to move through any other channels, which is a great feature. Then you've got the option to do notifications. So you've got the option to create a notification back to the dispatcher if somebody's passing into the zone. It's a simple case of clicking enabled, and you can create an emergency message if need be and type in the free text message here. Okay, and you've got that option for passing in, passing out, checking if it's empty, stay time. So if you're going into a particularly hazardous area that you can only stay in for a certain amount of time, you can set a limit so that time is not exhausted, and a notification is put through to the dispatcher to get in touch with the user that's outstayed their welcome. Okay, so there's a number of things that you can do within the zone to tailor it to your requirements. One of the greatest features about it, or one that I really like, is the lone worker aspect. So what you can do in the zones is you can enable lone worker. So when somebody goes into that zone, it enables lone worker on their device, and you can even get as granular as selecting the features that are enabled on that device as well. So if it's only impact detection that you want to have triggering alarms, then you can just select impact detection. If you want all of them, simple case of checking all of them. Once you're happy that the zone is set up the way you'd like it, simply click OK, and all those features are in play in this zone now. So it's that straightforward to do, but also a really powerful feature. We've had a couple of great use cases of zones being set up in quite wide areas, and what it's for is generally if it's particularly in the logistics space, if you've got a wagon coming back from collecting things or materials, whatever it might be, they move into the zone, an alert gets put through to the dispatcher to say this vehicle is 10 minutes away, and everybody can prep the site ready to go, and it could be logistics, construction, whatever it might be. So it just smooths things out and speeds things up on site as well. So you can see a potentially very powerful feature for a lot of users. So if you want to remove the zone, simply right click on it again, remove the zone. You'll always get asked if you want to remove it because you're making a significant change. Click yes, and that zone now disappears. So another thing just to show quickly would be the guard tours. Guard tours is a really popular feature for Airsys.Cloud, and it is something that is in conjunction with Task Manager bolt-on. So if you need guard tours, you have to get the Task Manager bolt-on. Very straightforward to set the guard tour, much like it is with the Geo Fence. Simply click on a point and carry on around the point that you want to create the guard tour. Obviously, I'll make this very simple and straightforward. That's it, you've created a guard tour. And if you want to put properties on these guard tours, it's exactly the same thing as it was with the Geo Fence. Simply right click, click on properties, and that takes you into this area. Again, you've got the ability to name the guard tour, and you can assign users to it as well. So let's say we'll do Web 5 dispatch for the purpose of this. Now you've got various modes that you can select for the guard tool to operate on. You've got GPS, you've got QR code, and you've got NFC. Now, one of the things that we found, funnily enough, is that initially when we first started with guard tools, we thought QR codes were a really good way to go. As it turns out, we've discovered that security guards quite often have two devices on them and will take pictures of QR codes as they go around. And then when their guard tour is due to be run, they simply sit in their van and scan the QR codes with their other device, without actually going on site and scanning the points. So NFC tag is the way that we've decided to go forward. That means they physically have to be there to scan the tag itself. So if we select NFC for the purpose of this, you can give the guard tour a description, again just tailoring it to suit the needs. And here's where you can give it some timings as well. So if you've got guards that need to complete a tour in a certain time, this is where you can set the time. So you've got point from where they are to point 1, you can give them 30 minutes for that, whatever it might be. Point 1 to point 2 needs to be completed within 10 minutes. Point 3 to point 4, another 10 minutes. Point 4 to point 5, 5 minutes, whatever it might be. And if they don't meet these timing points, an alert will be triggered back to the dispatcher. So it's again just a security point of view. So if we go to the points, you can label each point individually. You can give it a description. This means that a guard can do a tour for the first time, having not been to site, and it would just give them a bit of detail as to where they need to go to scan the NFC tag. Here's where you get the information for the NFC. So each point is individual information, and so you simply copy and paste it into a NFC tag generator application. You do it on one device initially, and that sets it up for the entire network. Okay, and then you've got the ability to create a schedule as well. So if you've got a guard tour that's taking place multiple times throughout the day or multiple times throughout the week, it's a simple case of creating the schedule here. So essentially you're removing the manual aspect of guard tours. Okay, once you're happy that it's set up correctly, simply click OK, and you might have heard a ping on the device there, and that just means that the guard tour has gone through to that field user. So again, just a very quick look on how you can do a guard tour. It's there are multiple things that we can do, and we can configure it really to suit the user requirements. Again, if you want to remove that guard tour, simply right click and click remove guard tour. Again, it will ask you if you want to do so. Just to confirm, you do that. And you may have heard that ping again on my device, and that just says that the guard tour has now been removed. So one more thing to show you on Airsys.Cloud map tools, and that's been a popular feature, which is GPS tracking. So GPS tracking, basically users can be set to share their GPS location currently every 30 seconds is how we've got this particular one set up in Airsys.Cloud, but it can be as low as 10 seconds and it can go up to as many seconds as you'd like it, essentially. So navigate to the right hand side here where you've got your list of icons. It's GPS tracking is this one here. And you can see I've already got this one pre-populated, so if I scroll out on the map, we can see I've got a little snail trail that's appeared here, going from the M40 to the M25, a happy day, I'm sure. But it just shows you that each dot here has got a little time and date stamp, so every 30 seconds you'll get one of these time and date stamps, just to show you where the users were at any particular time. So again, another really powerful feature of Airsys.Cloud. It's proved very popular with our customers, and I'm sure it will do so with many more. So that just about wraps up the map tools aspect of the Airsys.Cloud dispatcher. As you can see, there's lots of things that you can do. It's fairly intuitive and very easy for a dispatcher to navigate and operate. So if we just go back to the main screen of the dispatcher, that concludes our webinar for today. So all that's left for me to say is thanks for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock for the all-important bolt-ons, where we'll dig into these plugins that we saw today in a little bit more detail. So Richard's going to come on hand now to answer any questions, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.